Welcome to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him at godsfiveminutes@gmail.com. Now, here's Ed Wilson with God's 5 Minutes.
Psalm 31:19 reads, "O how great is thy goodness, which thou hast laid up for them that fear thee, which thou hast wrought for them that trust in thee before the sons of men." The psalmist has been describing with the eloquence of misery his own desperate condition and all manner of phrases which he heaps together: sickness, captivity, like a broken vessel, as a dead man out of mind. But in the depth of desolation, he grasps at God's hand, and that lifts him up out of the pit. "I trusted in thee, O Lord, thou art my God." So he struggles up onto the green earth again, and he feels the sunshine, and then he breaks out, "Oh, how great is thy goodness, which thou hast laid up for them that fear thee." So the psalm that began with such grief ends with a ringing call, "Be of good courage, and he shall strengthen your heart, all ye that hope in the Lord." These great words do not convey to the hasty reader the full force of the antithesis which lies in them. The contrast in the two clauses is between goodness laid up and goodness wrought. The verses thus are speaking of two great bodies of goodness, one of which is plainly open, viewable, obtainable to the sons of men in this here and now world, the other which is laid up, dimly seen and preserved for another dispensation. It's like saying there are a great many dollar bills in circulation, but far more gold to support them in the treasury. The first goodness reminds of the bush Moses saw that burned but was not consumed. That lowly shrub flaming and not burning out meant the same as a divine name, then proclaimed, "I am that I am," which is only a way of saying that God's being is absolute, dependent upon none, determined by himself, infinite and eternal, burns and is not burned up, lives and has no proclivity towards death, works and is unwearied, operates unspent, is revealed and yet hidden, gives and is none the poorer. And as we look at our daily lives and travel back in thought, perhaps over many years which have all been crowded with examples of divine faithfulness and loving care, we are moved to grasp both these exclamations of our text. "Oh, how great is thy goodness which thou hast wrought! How much greater is thy goodness which is laid up!" The table has been spread in the wilderness. We live again in 1,000 ways a joy and fullness that belong to the multitude who sat down on the green grass and feasted to the full, and yet abundance remained. Or we see, as the Israelites of old, how the fountain rises and the whole camp, themselves and their children and their cattle, slake their thirst at it, and yet it's as full as ever. The goodness wrought is only the first beginnings of the unrevealed abundance that is laid up. God's riches are not like the world's wealth, which have an end, if not an amount, then an ability for anyone to enjoy. You very soon get to the bottom of its purse. God's goodness is a river of water of life that proceeded out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. So let's take courage, Christian friends. Though we undergo experiences in this world that cause us to feel like the psalmist did, when he mentioned in his prayerful poem his tears, sufferings, disappointments, and reverses, physical, emotional, and spiritual, he also found his day of glad sunshine in which he was able to look back on all and recognize a great guiding hand with a divine purpose in it all. Even when his sufferings came from his own failings, even when they did not, his great merciful Creator went with him, always with a purpose and a power to use all that befell him to his good, and to the ultimate blessing of all who surrounded him. Those before us have sung how joy without measure will be our treasure. Heaven will surely be worth it all. There are no souls who have passed in the next world with a victory testimony on their lips, who have been disappointed with their eternal home, and no more shall we, if we are faithful to walk the same path. You and I are destined to the same blessing. Have you talked to God today?
You have been listening to God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson. Reach him by email at godsfiveminutes@gmail.com. Tune in next time to hear more encouraging thoughts from God's Word on God's 5 Minutes with Pastor Ed Wilson.
Are you a Christian who likes to read? If not, there's a whole world of Christian publishing out there that you're missing out on. I invite you to check out the Author's Corner podcast, where I talk to the latest Christian authors each week about their new book releases and what's coming next. So if you're ready to jumpstart your spiritual growth with the newest books and the authors who write them, check out the Author's Corner podcast with me, Roberta Foster.